Hello and welcome to the Remind podcast, the podcast where we get inside the real estate entrepreneur's mind. My name is Harrison Smith. I'm the director of growth with the Mateja Group of Keller Williams Realty, based here in Maine and expanding throughout New England. And I'm joined today by Kat Azimi. How are you, Kat?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Harrison. How are you?
Great. Happy to have you here. Looking forward to talking about you and your story. So, to kick it off, why don't you tell people a little bit about who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah. So I'm actually the lead listing agent on the team at the Mateja Group here. So full time real estate agent. It's pretty much, you know, unlike some real estate agents, I guess 9 to 5 every single day, Monday through Friday. This is what I do. Other than that, I'm also a mom. I've got a 3-year-old, soon to be 3-year old. She tells me every day her birthday's coming up. So there's that. And then you know, just type of person that likes to hang out, be with my family, cook, doing a kitchen remodel right now, any sort of interior design. So I got two, and I have 2 dogs. So that's me
Awesome.
in a nutshell.
So you're feeling the pain of the clients that do renovation work.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's fun.
Awesome.
It's fun for me. I love it.
Yeah. Well, if you like design, you like construction,
Yep,
renovation projects are fun.
I do.
Awesome. All right. Most people that have been on the show, we find that they didn't start in real estate. Very few people seem to start in real estate. They end up in real estate for whatever reason. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you got started and then how did you end up in real estate?
Yeah, that's funny what you said because if you asked me when I was younger, like if I ended up in real estate, I would have laughed so hard. It's probably the furthest from anything that I expected I would have done. So I went to Northeastern, got my undergraduate in behavioral neuroscience, actually. So it's like a psychology,
Hmm.
biology, basically chemistry major. Um, didn't know if I was going to go like maybe into med school or what I ended up doing, which was going into psychology and got my master's degree in counseling psychology. So spent like 2-ish years in addiction, mental health treatment, worked at a couple different treatment facilities and was doing that for a while, just like a helper personality. So I like to help people. Um, and, I think kind of the thing I'm just naturally driven to is helping people see a goal and get them towards it. And
Sure.
then and then there's some like pros and cons to being in that field. It's probably the biggest, the most amount of burnout that you can imagine. And it's really, it can really weigh on you. But, and then ended up, my husband and I moved to San Diego. Um, and, you can't just take a counseling degree
Hmm.
to another state, right? It's
Yeah.
license based. So when I got to San Diego, I had to figure out something else to do and didn't really know that I wanted to continue in that place for the reasons I just mentioned. And then also financially, I mean, it's really hard to kind of get ahead in that field. But I still wanted to help people. So my goal was actually to get into more of like a coaching role, like I don't know, life coaching or whatever I was going to do. But I knew that I wanted to do two things, like help people coach them and guide them into, a path and own my own business. And so I ended up taking a job at a company that sold real estate websites to real estate agents. And it was like it was just as straight up cold calling as you could get. But I figured that I needed to learn how to sell because I needed to know how to sell myself and I needed to learn more about business. And I just had no training in that
Sure.
whatsoever. So I went there and to my surprise was like it came really naturally to me. I think what I figured out was that selling is basically the same thing as what I wanted to do, right? It's really about figuring out what people want and telling them how to get there and whatever you have, to offer them in order to get there. So I just use those same skills in that role, working with real estate agents and setting them up for these real estate websites. So like 9 to 5, or not even 9 to 5, probably 6 a.m. until 4 p.m. every single day. I did not get off the phone. I just literally dialed like all day, every day. And so quickly was, one of the top salespeople in my company. But was talking to real estate agents every single day and was seeing that some really treated it like a business and some did not. And I ended up talking to one. I talked to agents all over the country, but one was right in San Diego, and they 3 or 4 times I talked to them over a couple of months, they kept telling me, like, "You need to get your real estate
Hmm.
license." And I was like, "No, I love my job, and I'm making more money than I ever have before. Why would I need to?" But eventually, like, things changed, and I ended up getting my real estate license and joining a team out in San Diego. So that's how I got into real estate.
Wow.
And again, I mean, it just came really naturally to me. Now it is even better. Like I saw real estate as a way to continue to help people reach a goal. And that's really what it is, right? It's like you want to sell your house, you want to buy a house. There's all the steps that you need to do to get there. This is why that is why you're driven to do that. And just trying to get people there. So from like a client to client, a person to client basis, that's kind of my method. And then I see it as a vehicle for, real estate to me is a vehicle for almost anything you want to do, whether it's investment, just typical real estate sales. And then, thing that I, am leaning towards is really coaching other agents and um, training them and seeing how they can shift their mindset to be a bit more successful in the field too.
Yeah, that's great. So really what you describe is using your background more to serve people than
Mhm.
sell to people. And everybody
Like,
thinks of real estate, it's a sales business. You're a salesperson. You got a hard closer and you've got to do all these things, but your business doesn't work that way. So can you talk a little bit about that kind of sales versus service dynamic in this space?
yeah, I mean, I meet with people every day, right? I mean, the whole from I see how it's funny to me because I look back and go, how did my sales skills that I learned at that job, how do they guide me? And how does my background in counseling and psychology guide me? And it's those two things together, right? The sales skills are not hard sales. I'm not trying, I always thought that was funny, right? I'm not trying to get somebody to buy a house that they don't want. I'm not trying to get somebody to sell a house that they don't want to sell. I'm never trying to convince somebody to do something. What I am doing is using sales skills like um, like qualifying somebody. It's like, do
Mhm.
you have the money to buy? Do you have the desire to buy? Do you have the motivation to buy? Are those things ready? Or when it comes to selling, is what are your needs? Why do you want to sell? And what do we need to do to get you to there to sell? And are you motivated to sell? And are you willing to sell at the right price? And that's the sales skill, right?
Mhm.
Um, but when it comes down to it, it's really about sitting down with a person and just learning about who they are and learning about what they want and what they need, and then being the person who tells them how to get there. I think, the benefit that I have is I have so much confidence in what I'm able to do when it comes to helping somebody sell their home that I can take some of that fear off of their plate. Some of the things that's really scary for them. I mean, selling a house is one of the hardest things that you'll do in your life. It honestly is. It's a huge thing to do. But when you have somebody who can guide you and is confident and can hold your hand the whole way through, it's not so scary anymore. And then you can do it. You can reach your goal, you know?
Right. Yeah, for sure. I love how you put it. You're not trying to get somebody into a house or make somebody buy a house. You're trying to just understand what they're looking for and help guide them to the right answer versus try to
Exactly.
tell them what the right answer is.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So do you feel like your background where you came through, kind of the psychology world, good understanding of people, how much of that do you lean on day to day?
Oh, all the time. The reasons that people sell, I mean, like I said, I primarily work with sellers. So if
Yep.
you even just look at that, what are the reasons that people sell a home? It could just be a life change. It could be something really exciting. And so then the psychology of that is like, yeah, I really want to do this thing, but still it's a hard thing to do. So how do I motivate myself to do it? Or it's somebody died, or it's you're getting a divorce, or I actually can't afford my house anymore and I need to sell it. Right. So you need to meet every person. Every person that I meet, I have to meet them where they're at.
Hmm.
It's not the same every time. And to understand somebody's psychology as they go through the process, to know that, the stressors or the type of personality they are and the things that they need as they go through it are what allow me, I think, to number one, like make a good connection with people so that they do feel confident to work with me, but also to give them the best experience possible is to say, maybe you're a type of person who only wants to know the bare minimum and just leave you alone because you're busy. Like that's my personality, right? Whereas other people want to know every single detail as they go. They want to
Sure.
feel informed. They want to feel a piece of it. And that's all, just understanding how people are and being able to match who that person is.
Got it. Yeah. So you appear to be like them and
Mhm.
empathetic to how they interact and what they need versus
Absolutely.
just continually coming at every single person with the same approach and wondering why it just doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. It's a lot of like, what is it, like Power Rangers more fair. So, you gotta match your personality to match the person that you're working with, and that's good service, I think.
Sure. So when a client calls in and says, I'm thinking about maybe making a move, what are you doing? What does your process look like to understand where that person's at, what they need, and how you can best, help them reach that?
Yeah, as soon as I talk to everyone, it's like, what are you well, I mean, getting some information about where they are now. Um, what the condition of their home is, things like that. What's your goal? Where do you want to be? Um, what are and usually people kind of give up, what their big fears are, but you kind of understand what they are, right? We're in a market right now where inventory is incredibly low. So most people I talk to right now have a fear of where they're going to go to when they sell. I mean, the market is so good, you can get, a ridiculous price for your home. Everyone wants to take advantage of that. Most people want to take advantage of that, right? If you just need to figure out what the barriers are. So it's like, okay, when this home sells, where are you planning on moving to? And they're like, oh man, that's actually the hard part. I don't know. And then I can say, the good news is, 90% of the people I talk to right now actually don't know where they're moving when their
Mm.
house sells. And yet every time we've gotten them into a house and no one yet has become homeless. Right. So, giving them the confidence, like, I got this. I understand that that's a concern. We'll talk about what your options are. And then going to the next piece is like, what other concerns do you have? What things need to get done for your home, and then just talking to them about that, like I said, build some confidence up, and then say, "Yeah, I want to meet you. Let's sit down. We'll go over all these options, and I'll tell you how we can make this a smooth transition." And then just find a time to meet them in person.
Okay, makes sense. So you go the psychology route, you move to San Diego, get into
Mhm.
sales, move into real estate. So again, you're not from San Diego, don't know anybody in San Diego, jump into real estate. You get established in San Diego, you move to Maine.
Yeah,
And you move to Maine where you also don't know anybody and you're not
exactly.
established. So it's like starting over. So explain a little bit, what's that like when you come into a market you don't know, where you don't have a network? How do you get started?
Yeah, starting more than once is, not something I'd recommend to myself or really anyone else. I mean, you can do it, but you're gonna start over. So obviously, those first, few months when you get to a new place are kind of tough, and you just really have to. That's really when it comes down to like an actual grind. It's like, how many people can I talk to? How many people can I meet? Who can I find that's motivated right now, so that I can get some things in the pipeline and actually, like, support my daily needs, right?
Mhm.
You get to that, you're in that point in the beginning. And that's just who can you talk to, really? It's for sale by owners who've already said they wanna sell, they just don't wanna pay a commission. And then there's expireds, like homes that have listed in the past and haven't sold. People have raised their hand, said they wanna sell, and they'll pay an agent, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's door knocking. Maybe it's doing open houses. You're gonna find, a buyer or a seller who walks in the door right then and there. So it's number one is just taking action and taking action and taking action and taking action, right? Over and over and over again every day until you start to see some consistency. Real estate is a long game. That was like, when it comes down to it, the biggest change for me. I learned, I learned my sales skills in an environment where I would make a phone call and then, you know, 45 minutes later, I'd have a sale. And then you go into real estate where, like, you might talk to somebody and you might not sell their house for 6, 9, 12 months or 2 years. It's a much slower process. So you have to get started right away. Whether you're new in the business, whether you're in a new place, it's do everything you can every single day so that that time frame between now and the time you get your first sale and your second sale and your third sale is just getting closer and closer, right? And that's going to require a lot of contacts, a lot of contacts.
Yeah, it's how do you meet as many people as you possibly can,
Mhm.
show them what you're doing, gain their trust, show that they can like you, and then ultimately have them come back and work with you, which
Exactly.
when you've got an existing network of people is certainly easy, but when you're starting from square one, it's all new relationships, and that's certainly challenging to go establish that many relationships, but you seem to do it relatively quickly.
Mm,
Was there a secret to that?
I think, I mean, if I can just continue to give credit to the training that I got
Mm,
in that sales role, was this just comes down to confidence. You know, with things you don't know, you can find them out. You've got like, whether you have a team behind you like I do, I mean, which is, the huge benefit is that both in San Diego and now I was on a team. There was a portion of time when I wasn't on a team, but is that, if there's something I don't know about the main market or if there's something I don't know about real estate because I'm brand new, is that I can say with confidence that I'm going to get them an answer and then go
mm,
get it. Even if you don't, you still have, a brokerage that you work for. It's about confidence and it's about just caring, honestly. If you
mhm.
the basics of this relationship is just like, I ask a question, I listen to the answer, and then I reply. And I think a lot of people struggle that they're so worried about saying the right thing or doing the right thing that they get out of, you know, out of the conversation
Yep.
and people can feel that. So I just try to have a conversation with people, let them know that I'm actually there, that I'm actually listening, and that I'm motivated to help them, and that I'm confident that I'll find the answers to anything that they need. I think that builds trust really quickly.
Yeah. And I love that point. If you're really busy thinking about what you're going to say next, you're not going to hear what they're saying. And you're
Exactly.
gonna end up responding in a way that either doesn't match or is just completely irrelevant to the path they were heading because you just honestly didn't listen. You didn't hear what they
Exactly.
said.
Hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Love that. So you chose relatively early on to focus on sellers versus working
Hmm.
with buyers.
Yeah.
Why sellers?
Well, a couple reasons. You can do. I mean, generally, you can do more business working with sellers. There's just less time on task, I guess, with a seller is what I would say. I also think personality wise, I'm a great match for a seller. Is that I'm pretty direct, and I, I like to lay out information in a pretty factual way, which is what sellers need, right? They need to
Mhm.
know what they're going to get. They can look at data. So I enjoy working with sellers. I'm happy to work with buyers and it can be fun, but I guess it's not so much of an emotional, is this fun, exciting to me? It's more about, honestly, I just like to know what's your goal and let's just get you there. And then, so those things are true. But the other part of it is that when we moved to Maine, we moved back with my 3 month old, who now, like I said, is turning 3. And I just didn't want to be working nights and weekends. Right. I wanted to have a job like a normal person, go in every day, have a schedule that I could expect and rely on, and that's so much easier to do with sellers, right? I don't have to go show homes on nights and weekends, and, um, that was my priority. So, I mean, I've taken buyers, the whole way through at times more than others, but I knew from the beginning that my entire focus was to work with sellers and pretty much just specialize in doing that.
Gotcha. So when you're setting your schedule and working with clients, do you set the expectation of these are my hours, these are the hours I'm available, and you lay
I
that expectation out?
Yeah, I'd love to meet with you. Ideally, that looks like a normal business day, somewhere between 9 and 4 p.m. on Monday through Friday. If for any reason you truly can't meet, we can try meeting via the phone, or maybe a Zoom call. And then if that absolutely doesn't work for you, I can look outside of that, with some notice. And so by that point, it's just like a doctor's appointment. It's just like anything else. When you're going to meet with a professional, you expect to meet with them between 9 and 4. And I think just even telling them that, you know, gain some confidence, as I'm confident that that's my hours and I'll meet with you between them, and I don't have a problem with it. I would say in a year, I might take 5 listing appointments outside of that time frame.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
Very.
it just requires you having that discipline and setting that expectation up front, so
Mhm.
nobody's surprised when you say you're not available. And I love the example of the doctor. I believe Corey used that too, the idea of how a doctor's office runs. In this business, we have the ability to set our schedules. We have the ability to have other people potentially do things for us, respond to questions,
Mhm.
kind of that doctor nurse model. But we have to your point, run it like a business, which is
Yes.
what some agents do and some agents don't. You've got to decide early on, are you going to run this like a business or are you just going to run around and serve clients? Because those are two very different things.
It's true, and I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not available to my clients because I can answer a text or an email anytime, but I really, I value my in-person time with my
Mhm.
family, and I really don't compromise on it. Another great reason that I'm on a team, right? We have other people who can support us in times. My clients never suffer for it, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Again, it comes down to the people you surround
Mhm.
yourself with. Whether
Mhm.
that's a team, whether that's just the people you work with every day, but continually having those people around you, the right people around you that make your life easier, allow you to do bigger and better things is always going to be the key.
For sure, absolutely.
Nice. So, what would you say has been most important to your success? Is there a particular habit, trait, mindset you point to?
I am a person who very much believes you can do anything you want if you put the right effort and energy into it. One of the things that drives me every day is that I kind of grew up and, I have a great family, but one thing has always been like why you can't do something, right? You get into real estate. It's like, well, that's going to be, you're going to have to pay self-employment taxes. Like, this is the funny things that I heard that were going to
Yep.
be like, those things are going to hold you down or hold you back. And to me, I'm like, I can do it. I just need to put in the work. So I am a very firm believer of that. And like everything that I do in my life is really, and my goal is to show people that you can have or do pretty much anything you want if you just focus on it and believe you can. So I think it is a mindset. That is my mindset. And so because of that, I show up to work every day. And so consistency is the habit, right?
Mhm.
The mindset is I know I can if I do it, and the habit is just doing the work and doing it consistently.
Yeah, and it's amazing on this journey how many well-intentioned people you'll talk to that, whether it's out of fear or because they care about you, will almost try to convince you that you can't do it. And in
Mhm.
many cases, it's because they don't see it, they don't understand it. But I love that of, "I'm now gonna prove to people I can do it
I
because I
love
feel like I can." Yeah, the
I love
competitive nature, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Alright, so along those same lines, what would you say has been the most difficult lesson you learned along the way?
Um, I guess it's a few things like, in any sort of role where you're going to be growing over time. Like, I mean, I have these, there's like these levels of achievement, right? And you reach a new one, and every time that you reach a new one or you break a barrier, then that becomes now that becomes your floor, right?
Mhm,
It's like, it definitely is, the hard part, I guess sometimes is that you're just constantly reaching for more and more and more, and you have to continually find meaning. It's not necessarily that a lesson I learned, or it's really just about understanding that there's a journey and you're going to continue to be on it. The more you achieve, the more people expect of you. And then your achievements no longer, have the same impact, on the people
mm,
around you. But it's like there's this piece of this where you have to decide for yourself at some point, am I doing this for myself and for my own growth, or am I doing this for, the recognition of others, or for the pat on the back, or, you know, all of that. And I think ultimately you have to have your own, reasons why you do things. Um, I guess the lesson is really just like, you have to keep asking yourself what that is, right? And the hardest part about my job is never working with clients. It's about the like emotional ups and downs that come from
mm.
what I'm expecting of myself and what others are expecting of me. And how do I keep being the absolute like best that I can be? Um, like Tom Brady and his A Man in the Arena said something
Mm,
like that. It was like just incremental growth every single day of his career. And that's, he's the best football player that ever lived. So,
yeah.
it's like the lesson is that you got to just keep growing, and sometimes it's going to be really hard. And sometimes you're going to feel like you're like bursting through a ceiling and you can't even help how much you're growing. And there's going to be those levels, I think.
Yeah, and I love the fact you call it a journey because I feel like that's the part of this whole process that people forget about. This is a journey. There's no overnight successes here. When you think about setting goals, you keep striving to hit these new levels and reach these new goals. And when you hit them, it's almost disappointing because you feel like that was such a big deal, but I've hit it. So now it's always like, okay, now what? Like, what's
You
next?
know?
But
Yep.
that journey never ends. You just keep leveling up and going for more and more and
Mhm.
continuing to, as you called it, grow incrementally.
Yeah,
So the goal itself is almost irrelevant. It's being prepared to be on that journey for a long period of time and learning to love that journey versus just trying to love the outcome.
absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So do you find, given that mindset, are you a goal setter or are you somebody who just sets like really, really crazy big goals and just likes to always have something way out there they can chase after?
No, I think goal setting is one of my strengths, honestly, is that I will always take where I'm at, and I will, one of my routine things that I do, not that I do it on like a specific date every few months or anything like that, but whenever I feel like I really need to, whenever that I come to that point where I go, wait, what am I working for? Or what's the next big goal? Is that I will spend some time feeling like what actually makes sense? What's enough that it drives me? What's something that's actually going to impress me, myself?
Hmm.
And then it's got to scare me a little bit, right? But it's not so much that I just don't believe it's possible. And then if I have this gap between those two things, I will find a way to make myself believe that it's possible. Like I will just lay data out there and then go, yeah, like I did 25% increase in this time frame. So from here I could do 25% increase. Or let's say I do this a little bit differently. That gets me to my goal. And even though, it's still a big goal or a big change, I have to believe it in my core,
Hmm.
but also know that it's gonna be hard. Right. And then when I do that, I find like I don't know. It's a weird thing people have always said about me, but I think it really is because I have that process is that if I want something and I set my mind to it, it ends up happening. And it's just because I have all of those pieces of the puzzle. It's like I know what I want, why I want it, and that it's possible and what I'm going to do to get there. And then everything else kind of falls into place a lot of times.
Yeah. Set goals that make sense, set goals that have meaning, but also set goals you believe in. A lot of times we see it, and we see it with people we work around too sometimes in the real estate space where they set goals that don't mean anything. Whether maybe
Yeah.
they're low, maybe they're crazy, ridiculously high. Maybe they're not even interested in ever hitting that goal because that's not what motivates them and gets them excited. It's important when you do that goal setting process, you're setting goals that you actually care about
Here.
reaching versus arbitrary numbers you feel obligated to.
There's been times when goals have been set for me, and
Mm.
I think, okay, like I want to do that for that person because they said it. But in my heart, I know I don't care about that. I don't necessarily want it. And like, it doesn't happen, right? I have to, like, all the pieces kind of have to be there. You have to want to hit the goal. Um, yeah, it has to have some meaning to you. I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
um, it's more than just action because, it's like your cells eavesdrop on your thoughts, right?
Mhm.
You're going to make things happen if you really truly believe them and you really want them.
Yeah. Great point. And it comes down to, are you setting goals that mean something to you, or you're just setting targets you want to aim at because it seems like a good idea?
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. All right. What would you say is the one piece of advice you wish you had known when you got started?
Piece of advice I wish I had known. I, I I mean, I think I always knew it, but I think people just need to be reminded over and over again. It's like just do consistent action. All right. The biggest fault that will happen is when you feel like something's not happening, and so you kind of give up for a little while. I mean, any of the bigger moments of my real estate career that I felt like were losses were because I got in my own head or I got distracted.
Mm.
Do consistent action. It doesn't always have to be the same amount or the same level, but like, other than like you're gonna take a vacation, just show up every day. I think that's the number one thing. Is there was when I went from being on a real estate team to being on my own for a little while, which was the right decision for some reasons, I found out that, I didn't have as much accountability to myself as I did to other people. I don't I want to do things for myself, but I know that like I I respond better when I'm accountable to other people. So being accountable to somebody, but I just didn't show up all the time,
Mm.
right? And then there would be these huge gaps in my production, or in just the way that I felt. So the good thing about being on a team is that other people are expecting me to show up. If I don't show up, they know that I don't show up, right? So
Yeah.
show
Exactly.
up every single day. And ever since I've been doing that, my business has just continued to grow exponentially.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of real estate is the business itself. It isn't easy, but it's simple.
Hmm.
And it's really, as you said, take consistent action. Action eventually leads to outcomes. But more importantly, I wish I could put a big neon sign somewhere that just says "show up every day," because that's really it. Show up every day, good energy, good intention, and you can do a lot just with that,
Exactly. Yep.
for sure. Well, before we wrap up here, Kat, just appreciate you taking the time to share your story and your background. If people want to learn more about you, get in touch with you, learn more about what you do, more about you, or have any potential real estate needs, what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Phone or text, or sorry, text or email are the two best ways.
Okay.
And so my phone number is 207-205-5487. And then email is always, the nicest, and it's just right there. So that's cat, Kat, at KW Keller Williams Mateja, M as in Mary, ATEJA.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Kat. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you so much
Look
for
forward to
having me.
having you on the show maybe down the road to get an update on what else you're up to.
For sure. Thank you.